Welcome back. This is Upon Further Review with Sean Tomlin. In this week's episode, we're going to be looking back at Week 15 and looking ahead to Week 16 and going over a bunch of picks. We're also going to be talking about a whole bunch of NFL news that happened around the league this past week. And in the later half of the show, we're going to be going through our fantasy news and highlighting the Clusterfuck 2 League, the league that I am a part of and I run. Also, if for next year, because I know most of the fantasy football leagues are now all in the playoffs, if you'd like to get your league highlighted on this show, and I'll talk about it once a week in that later portion, leave a comment on the YouTube page or leave me a comment at upon.furtherreview on Instagram. So if you're liking this video before we get started, if you're liking this video, hit the like button, throw it a comment, smash the share button, and if you want to get updates when new episodes are going to be aired, well then, hit the subscribe button. All right, let's get it started. Let's look back at what happened in Week 15. A lot of great action all the way around the league last week. Saw some pretty wild and crazy things, especially with the Colts. But it all started on Thursday Night Football with the Falcons going up against the Buccaneers. And man, this was one heck of a matchup to watch. The Falcons came back from being down by 14 points. Kyle Pitts had an amazing game, probably one of the best games I've seen by a tight end, at least this year, if not in the past few years. The Falcons were able to get this victory 29-28. It was an awesome match. So doesn't usually happen with Thursday night football matches. We know either it's a stinker or it's a really good match. In this case, we were treated to an awesome match with an awesome finish. And then our Sunday slate started, and we had the Jets going up against the Jaguars in the morning. And the Jags just annihilated the Jets. Should have saw this one coming. Trevor Lawrence was just looking on fire all day long. They did lose Tootin to a broken finger. He's probably going to be gone for a few weeks. But I think they'll be fine with a net ETN in there. So they got that victory 48-20 in our next matchup. And another, well, not the last one wasn't a good matchup, but this one was a matchup to watch. The Bills were down by 21 points, ended up coming back, taking the victory 35-31. Josh Allen was looking amazing. This very possibly could be a match you see in the AFC Championship or in the playoffs at some point in time, because these two teams are pretty high caliber. So that was an awesome match to watch. If you are able to tune into that one, you were treated for an awesome day of football. Then in our next matchup, we had the Bears going against the Browns. I thought the Browns were going to do good in this one. Obviously, the Bears have been doing awesome the past few weeks. All season long, they've got a great record leading their division. But I thought the Browns, with the way they had been looking with Shedeur Sanders, was going to be a little bit more formidable than this. Shedeur Sanders tricked me again. Apparently, he was Uncle Rico in disguise. And the Bears took this victory 31-3. Didn't look like they had any resistance against them all day long. They were just able to do whatever they wanted to. And that's surprising also because the Browns have had a really good defense. Myles Garrett's on pace to break the all-time sack record. So obviously they've got some things going right on defense, but they weren't able to put it all together on this day. In our next matchup, we have the Ravens blanking the Bengals 24-0. Lamar Jackson's really coming into his prime again. Looking like the quarterback we have seen in the past few years, not the one we've seen in the past few weeks. Bengals weren't able to get anything going, obviously losing Trayvon Henderson to season injury just the other week. So Bengals did not have any resistance against the Ravens offense at all that day. Our next matchup, we had the Texans going up against the Cardinals. Texans took this one 40-20. Kind of saw this one happening. Texans have had a really looking good defense the past few weeks. Probably 6-7 weeks, the Texans defense has been looking amazing. So definitely a team to be afraid of right at this point in time. The one thing, the Cardinals, they did lose Bam Knight. So if you have a backup running back on their team like Michael Carter, you're definitely going to want to probably have him running if you need to run a Cardinals running back. The Texans are just looking awesome on offense and defense, obviously highlighted by the awesomeness that their defense has been the past few weeks. In our next matchup, we had the Commanders going up against the Giants. Commanders were able to edge this one out 29-21. The Giants looked good all day, but the Commanders were able to get things going and get a couple chunk plays in there near the end when they needed to. Another matchup that we had was the Chargers going up against the Chiefs. Uh, this wasn't the greatest matchup, and obviously because of their quarterback injury, which we'll get into in just a minute here, um, really dampened a lot of their spirits. Chargers were able to get that victory 16-13, so that was a close, tight fought battle, but Chargers were able to come out on top on that one. The next one, we had the Eagles blanking the Raiders 31-0. Eagles hadn't been looking pretty dominant at all in the past few weeks, kind of sputtering on the offensive side, but they were able to get this victory this week. They were able to get back on track, show everyone in the NFL why they are such a dominant team, why they've been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years with one victory last season. But the Raiders weren't able to do anything on defense or offense. They just couldn't get the ball moving, and the Eagles shut them down all day. In a matchup that I thought was going to be a complete blowout for the 49ers, they took on the Titans this weekend. They got a 37-24 victory. Although the 49ers looked like they were in charge at the entire, like from the first whistle, definitely didn't see the Titans putting up 24 points, but they were able to get a couple plays going, a couple good drives going, and get a couple of points in there, but definitely thought the 49ers were going to put up a zero on them, just the way that they played this season in general. But the 49ers did not do that. Obviously, they've had some injuries on all sides of the team. Most importantly, on defense, Fred Warner being out, and that showed going up against the Titans. But they still look like a formidable team, and with their high-powered offense, they're definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with. If they are able to make it into the playoffs. Another matchup we had was the Lions going up against the Rams. Rams were able to take this one 41-34, even though they had a little bit of an injury there, which we'll get into in a minute here with one of their wide receivers. Lions were able to still look dominant all day, up in the air. This could be a potential playoff matchup, but it really just depends on if the Lions are able to lock down a playoff spot. They've been looking up and down the past couple of weeks, win loss type thing. In our next matchup, we had a really good matchup. The Broncos going against the Packers. Broncos took that victory 34-26. The Broncos team has just been on fire. Their defense, their offense, all season long. They started off a little bit slow, but very dominant, but have just become more of a dominant force as the season has progressed. So Broncos definitely looking awesome. Then we had an interesting matchup. Obviously, I was watching this one. The Seahawks and the Colts. Seahawks were able to take this one 18-16. This was Philip Rivers' first game back after 5 years. The 44-year-old quarterback didn't look bad. Didn't have a lot of takeaway bad things to say about how he played. A lot of people are saying like, oh, he didn't really throw a lot of deep passes or any at all. And, well, he never really did. That's never really been one thing that he has done. He definitely didn't have a lot of zip on his throws, but definitely looked good and looked like he knew what he was doing. Obviously looked like a 44-year-old quarterback that's been out of it for 5 years, but all in all had a really good day. And showed as well that the Seahawks aren't well, no, I think the Seahawks still are as dominant as we think they are, but they were able to show that they can put up with the team as long as they have a competent quarterback under center. In our next matchup, we had the Saints going up against the Panthers. This one was a tight victory with the Saints winning 20-17. Not a lot to say about that matchup. Both out of the playoffs at the moment, and well, just trying to be spoilers for everybody else. In our Sunday night football matchup, we had the Vikings going up against the Cowboys, and Unfortunately, the Cowboys lost this matchup 34-26, and it looks like their season going to the playoffs is not an option for them. And then on Monday Night Football, we had the Dolphins going up against the Steelers, and Tua put up a stinker, and the Steelers were able to get a good victory for them in their chase for the postseason. All right, let's look ahead to see what's going to be happening this upcoming weekend. And it's all going to start on Thursday Night Football. We've got an awesome slate of games going on. We've got Friday Night Football. We've got Thursday Night Football. We've got Saturday Night Football. We've got Sunday, and we've got Monday. So lots of good games happening. It's looks like a really awesome set of matches that you definitely want to, if you can, watch every single matchup. But obviously, that's not always feasible. So we're going to go through some of the matchups that are probably the best ones to look at. But we're going to go through every matchup right now. Thursday Night Football, we've got the Rams going against the Seahawks. I'm going to be taking the Rams on this one. They've been looking like a dominant team, definitely the better team. Seahawks are pretty awesome on defense, but I think the Rams are going to be able to handle them. Obviously, they're going to be hampered by wide receiver injuries, but we'll get into that in a couple minutes here. And then we're going to have two games on Saturday. First one's going to be at 2. It's going to be the Eagles going up against the Commanders. With the Commanders already out of the playoffs and Jaden Daniels shut down for the rest of the season, I see the Eagles taking this one pretty easily. And then in our night matchup on Saturday, we've got the Packers going up against the Bears, and I think this is going to be a shootout. Obviously, some injuries, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here, to the Packers. Bears have been looking dominant all year, so this is going to be a really good matchup. I think this is going to be one of the matchups of the week that you're going to make sure, you want to make sure that you watch this matchup. Then Sunday morning, it's all going to happen, starting off with the Chargers and the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are definitely going to want to, prove a little something. Getting kicked out of the playoffs last week after a little bit of a collapse has got to hurt a lot. So definitely, I think I'm going to take the Cowboys on this one. Cowboys to take the Chargers down and be a little bit of a spoiler for them. In our next morning matchup, we got the Bengals going up against the Dolphins, and these are two teams that are kind of sputtering in either direction. One not as bad, one really bad. I'm going to go Bengals on this one. I think there's just too many problems going on with the Dolphins that the Bengals are not going to be hampered by anything the Dolphins can do. In our next matchup, we got the Bills going up against the Browns. And if the Browns look anything like they did last weekend, the Bills have a very easy day ahead of them. I don't think the Browns are going to put any resistance against the Bills on this one, so you're definitely going to want to take the Bills on that one. Vikings going up against the Giants. Now, this one, the Vikings have not been looking good. They were able to get the victory over the Cowboys. It was a bright spot for them, but I think the Giants take this victory hard fought. I think this is going to be coming down to like a field goal probably at the very end. Then we got the Chiefs going up against the Titans. Even though the Chiefs had a pretty big injury, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here, I don't think it's going to hamper them enough for the Titans to be able to overcome that. I think it's still going to be a close matchup, but I'm taking the Chiefs to win on that one. Then we got the Buccaneers and the Panthers. I don't see much coming out of the Panthers. They've been really up and down the past few weeks, but before that, they've been pretty inconsistently bad. So I see the Buccaneers taking that victory easily there. Might be a little bit of a tight one, probably a score or two game, like a 7-10 point game, something like that. Then we got the Jets going up against the Saints, and the Jets have been able to stop nothing and do nothing this year. So I see the Saints taking that one without resistance. That's going to be a completely easy match for them. I see the Saints having a great day. Then we got the Jaguars going up against the Broncos, and I'm going to say this is going to be probably one of the games of the week that you're going to watch. Trevor Lawrence has been looking pretty stellar the past few weeks, and the Broncos have been looking good all year long, and their offense is now starting to catch up to how good their defense has been. So, and this one, it's kind of hard to say Uh, I'm gonna have to lean on the side of the Broncos here. I think they're just the better team, and obviously, I do want the Jaguars to lose. Colts are fighting for a playoff spot. They win, Jaguars lose. That's good for my Colts. Good for my Colts. Then in our next afternoon matchup, we've got the Falcons going against the Cardinals. Yeah, the Jaguars Broncos was the start of the afternoon matchups, if I didn't say that before. Falcons Cardinals. I don't see much from the Cardinals right now. Real middle of the pack. Team 16, not going to be making the playoffs. Not going to be at the bottom of the league, getting the first overall pick. But Falcons with Kirk Cousins there, definitely see the Falcons taking this victory, especially with such a big game by Kyle Pitts last week. It's hard to not pick the Falcons in this matchup. Then we've got the Steelers and the Lions, and I think this is going to be another great game to watch. Um, I think the Steelers are going to end up losing this one to the Lions. The Steelers have a lot of good momentum. They've been looking good on both sides of the balls. Not really good, not really bad, but looking right in the middle. Rodgers has been showing that he still has a little bit left in the tank. But I think the Lions get this victory. I think this is a week the Lions come back, especially with that combination in the backfield of Gibbs and Montgomery. It's hard to bet against the Lions a lot. Then we've got the Texans going up against the Raiders in our next matchup. And this is definitely a Texans victory over the Raiders. Raiders have been showing no pushback anywhere, up and down with their quarterbacks, up and down with their defense. I just don't see anything coming good out of the Raiders on this day, and the Texans defense has been looking really good. So I'm definitely taking the Texans on that one. And on our Sunday night football matchup, we got the Patriots and the Ravens. Patriots did look pretty good last week. Ravens also are starting to move that rock, starting to get things going. But I'm going to do something I haven't done in the history of this show. And I'm picking the Patriots to win. You heard it first here. In our next matchup, we've got the 49ers going up against the Colts for Monday night. I'm so excited for this matchup. I think it's going to be a hard-nosed match, just like the Seahawks game. Maybe a little bit more high-scoring, but I don't want to sound biased here. Of course I am, a little bit though. But I do think the Colts are going to get this victory over the 49ers. I think this is going to be a close victory. All right, so that's everything that's happening for week 16. Let's start looking at some of the news, why don't we? We're going to start it off with the Colts nearly lost to the Seahawks last week. Now, Phillip Rivers, obviously 5 years retired, coming back, 44-year-old quarterback, but he didn't look horrible. He was able to move the ball, move that offense around. He was never known to be throwing big, deep bombs. He's been a guy that always goes to like tight ends and little checkdowns, and that's just how Phillip Rivers always has been. And kind of looked the same way. He didn't really have the most zip on his throws, but he only had 3 days of practice. He is more familiar with the offense than any other quarterback they could have had. Because he has been running it at his son's college as well, or high school actually. So I'm excited to see him working with the first team all week long, having a full week of practice to see what he looks like there. All right. Well, Anthony Richardson looks to be coming off of IR. Now, they're not saying that he's 100% ready to go or anything like that, but he looks to have healed from his rubber band to the face, taking him out for, I think it's been 8 weeks now, fracturing an orbital bone. Obviously, if Phillip Rivers does lose and their playoff hopes dwindle, you could see Richardson in there. You know, he's on a rookie deal. Still, you throw him in there for 2 games. What's the worst that could happen, right? Next piece of news, Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL and he is out for the season. It did not look good. Obviously, that's going to be a hard road to come back from. So I never want to wish ill will on anybody. Hopefully, he is able to fully recover and rejoin his team at some point, but it probably won't be to the start of the season. And unfortunately, the Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs again. They had a little bit of a collapse in Sunday Night Football. You know, it's almost their forte. It's just kind of what they've done the past few years. And their offense and defense have never aligned, being one good and one also good. It's that the defense been really good, offense has been bad, offense been good, defense been bad, so on and so forth. But definitely didn't see this one coming. If you got a chance to watch that game, it was later in the game. I wouldn't necessarily say this was the reason the outcome happened, but KJ Wright going completely into the wrong hole and going onto the wrong side, and Aaron Jones running on the opposite side where he was supposed to go easily in for a TD was pretty rough to watch. But there was a lot more things than just that at the end of that game that made you want to put a bandana over your eyes. Going back to the Colts, they're in a wild race to make the playoffs right now. They got 3 games remaining in the schedule. One's against the Texans, one's against the Jags. Obviously, they got the 49ers this weekend. They're not out of it, but they definitely need the Jags to not win this weekend. Texans losing this weekend would be great, although they have a pretty soft matchup. And they get to play them. They're obviously going to need a win this weekend against the 49ers, possibly a loss by the Jaguars. Be great if they got a loss by the Texans. That would help them move back into possibly a playoff spot. But at this point in time, it looks like the Texans are probably going to take this victory this weekend. Colts get a victory, though. That goes a long way, and they're going to need some help, too. And it doesn't help that Trevor Lawrence has been looking pretty deadly the past few weeks, especially with this huge performance on the weekend. It's tough. They're actually starting to look like a competent team. Trevor Lawrence is starting to live up to the billing of the first overall pick that he was most graciously taken by the Jaguars. They've gotten a few of those over the years, but this one's starting to look like it's panning out, especially at the quarterback position. Up next, we got the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers making a late push to make the playoffs. They got to, hope for some bad luck on the Ravens' part, and the Ravens haven't been looking that deadly or dominant this year either. So there is a possibility that they make the playoffs, and maybe Rodgers gets to show that he has a little bit left in the tank, eh? Now, the Bills and Patriots game was an amazing matchup if you got to see it. It was a snow-filled, exciting day, full of offense. Bills were down 21 points, came back, ended up taking the victory 35-31. Awesome day of football to watch. It was like that just smash mouth, defensive type game for a little while, and then it just broke out into like a shootout, and it just had everything that you were really looking for. And I'm not really one to watch a lot of Patriots games, but this one I definitely was tuned into for some time because they were having a great day. Brandon Ayuk, next up. He's still not with the 49ers, not in contact. And Shanahan has kind of basically said we're going to be moving on without him this year. I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see Brandon Ayuk not on this team next year. It sounds like he just doesn't want to be there, and that's okay. If you don't want to be somewhere, don't be there. But I'm also in the belief that you are under contract. They are paying you. If you're good to go, you get your ass out there. After this most recent weekend of horrible quarterback play by Tua Tagovailoa, Mike McDaniels is now mulling the possibility that he goes to his backup and just, says, you do what you need to do to, maybe your head's a little bit scrambled, you've taken a lot of hits, maybe just sit this one out. Up next, the Jets fire their defensive coordinator Wilkes after a tough loss. I don't know if this was necessarily his fault, but it didn't help the way the Jets defense has been looking all year long. Um, Hard to really do that. You trade a lot of your defensive players away, your top stars for draft picks, and then you expect your defense to still do good. It's a no brainer. It doesn't make any sense. It's just banging two sticks together. It doesn't make any sense. Uh, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers was able to escape serious injury over the weekend. He's saying he thinks he can still play this upcoming weekend. Status is uncertain on that. More injury news from the Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons, well, he tore his ACL, so he's going to be down for the season. That's unfortunate, especially he starts off the season going from the Cowboys to the Packers. No one really saw that one happening. Um, it was unfortunate. Micah Parsons is a good defensive player, but he went on to the Green Bay Packers and he was showing he was still a dominant defensive player. He didn't lose anything, but it definitely sucks for him to be going out with an ACL injury, especially in their push right now. The season that most likely looks like it will be in the playoffs. It's just tough for them to lose such a key piece on defense. Uh, Jaden Daniels is being shut down for the rest of the season. Obviously, the Commanders aren't really in it anymore, so there's really no point to try and push him to go back. Just rest, get better, come back, and be the Jaden Daniels that we have all seen. Obviously, the Broncos are looking dangerous. They've been able to do whatever they want on offense, and they've been able to do whatever they want on defense all year. So, Broncos are definitely a team to watch out for. I think they're going to go pretty far in the playoffs. And the Jets, more news from them. They released Alan Lazard. He was the final leftover piece from the Aaron Rodgers era there in New York. And now they have finally rid themselves of all the players they tried to bring in to make Aaron Rodgers get there and get them to the Super Bowl, and it just didn't happen. Another person who was with Aaron Rodgers for a long time, Devontae Adams, sustained a hamstring injury, didn't look very good. He's hoping to play, but his status is up in the air. So keep an eye out for that one. Not good for the Rams, but they have Puka Nacua. They have other options. Kyron Williams looking great out of the backfield. All right, so that's everything with the first half of the show. We're going to go into the second half of the show, everything about fantasy, and we're going to start it off with our top threes at all positions last week. For quarterback, leading the way was Trevor Lawrence with 58 points, followed by Bo Nix with 40 points, and Kirk Cousins with 34 points. At running back, we had Trayvon Henderson with 33 points, ETN with 32 points, and James Cook with 32 points. At wide receiver, we had Amon St. Brown leading the way with 42 points, Puka Nacua right behind him with 28, and Jameson Williams with 27 points. For tight ends, Kyle Pitts with an amazing performance on Thursday night, probably the performance of the season for tight ends, was able to get 46 points on his 3-touchdown night, followed by Taylor McBride with 38 points and Darren Waller with 25 points, even though Tua was not looking the greatest the other night. On defense, we had the Bears leading the way with 46 points, the Jags 37, and the Chargers rounded it out with 36 points. Good thing somebody didn't play the Chargers defense. It's not like they needed those points or anything like that. My top 5 waiver wire pickups, that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to say you want to get Trevor Lawrence. If you don't have him and he happens to be available, go ahead and pick him up. He's been looking lights out, especially putting up, 58 points. 58 points, more than 58 points over the weekend in his matchup. Definitely going to want to get that guy into your lineup if he can put up that many points, especially in the fantasy playoffs here. You're definitely going to want to use him. With Bam Knight going down, I think you're going to want to add Michael Carter. If you've got to use a Cardinals running back, Michael Carter is going to be the guy you're going to want to go to because they really just don't have anything else. Another one, if Christian Watson isn't going to be playing, probably want to pick up Jalen Reed, stash him on your bench just in case. And if Watson's not able to go, he's definitely going to be somebody who's going to be involved in the offense quite a bit. Drake London is expected to come back from injury this weekend. And if he was dropped and is now on the waiver wire, go ahead and try and pick him up. I think he's going to have a great game with Cousins. The way Cousins has been looking, that offense is looking deadly. So definitely get him into your lineup. And then you've got the Saints defense going up against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers have been sputtering. And I think the Saints are an easy team to throw in there. If you need to stream a defense this weekend, going up against the Panthers is a juicy matchup. All right, next up, I'm going to tell you what your perfect lineup should be. I think if you have the option to have all these players, you should be starting every single one of them. Starting it off at quarterback with Jalen Hurts. For running backs, I'm going to say CMC and Bijan Robinson. For your wide receivers, go A.J. Brown to sync him up with Jalen Hurts there, and Mike Evans because he had a great day coming back after injury last week. I think George Kittle is going to put up a great day. Colts defense hasn't been great against the tight ends. They haven't been overly great, but not bad the past few weeks. So definitely get Kittle into your lineup. And even though I don't know exactly how well the San Francisco 49ers defense has been looking, they've been up and down, I'm going to say this is probably a game you're going to want to get Jonathan Taylor in there, so I'm going to put him in there for my flex position. And for defense, I'm going to go the Bucks. If you put in those guys, I think you are going to win big, get lots of points. If you even have a couple of those guys, you're going to want to get them in. All right, now let's look at the Clusterfuck 2 Fantasy League. Last week was week 1 of the playoffs. And we had a lot of great action going along. We had some pretty cool, interesting things happen. So we had my team, Hot Chop Time Machine MLC, going up against Ty's team, Protect Your Holes, and Ty was able to get this victory 176.25 to 157.75 and moved on to the conference championships, where he will be facing the winner of this next matchup. Les, you were able to get the victory with Chase Ventura against Bianca's team, HN and the Membrane. Took the victory 181.80 to 129.35. Scored the second most points in the league this week and looked dominant from start to finish. So you are going to be in the conference championship matchup for the Happy Gilmore division, or for the Shooter McGavin division. So it is going to be Ty versus Les. So that's a good one. In our next matchup, we had Dan's team, the reigning champion, going up against Shane's team, GB Packers. Past the Dutch is Dan's team, and he took that victory quite easily, scoring the most points in the league this week at 209.70. Got that victory over Shane, who scored 133.50. So Dan is off to his conference championship to look to make his run at a repeat championship. And he's going to be doing it against Graham's team, CD's Nuts. He was able to beat Simon's team, the Mark Davis Bullcut. The slimmest victory in the league this weekend was 118.50 to 108.55. So our conference championships are set. It's going to be quite interesting to see. I can't wait for everything to start happening. If we look ahead in our next matchup, we've got Dan going up against Graham in the first conference final for Shooter McGavin. And then we are going to have Protect Your Holes, Ty's team, going up against Les's team, Chase Ventura, in the Happy Gilmore, or that's the Shooter McGavin division. The other one's the Happy Gilmore division. And then in our consolation matchup, we have Shane going up against Simon this weekend. GB Packers versus the Mark Davis Bullcut. And we've got my team, Hot Chub Time Machine MLC, going up against Bianca's team, HN in the Membrane. So lots of great action going on. That's how everything's shaping up to look in the next weekend's matchup. Our conference championships are going to be going this weekend, so good luck to everybody in those matchups. Now, time to bid you guys a farewell. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being along for this episode. We've got 2 more episodes after this one for the season. So hopefully see you next week, where I'm going to break down everything you need to know.